Hello, Zach here, and today we're excited to welcome Tim Zierden, Chief Operating Officer of TradePending. He has over 20 years in the auto industry, and he's held leadership roles at Cox Automotive, Car Auction Services, and Dealertrack. And at TradePending, he leads operations through the customer lifecycle, overseeing sales, marketing, onboarding, customer support, and success. So, Tim, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate you having me on. Look forward to the conversation.
So, Tim, you've had a diverse career in auto technology. Can you share what led you to join TradePending and how your previous roles have shaped your approach to dealership solutions?
Sure. First of all, I was, really fortunate to know couple folks on the board of Trade Pending, and so when the opportunity came up, I was intrigued. As I started to do more research on the company, I was really impressed with what Bryce and his team had built, especially in the trade space. Very successful tool, and the acquisition of Auto APR, which is now our payment solution, had gone really, really well. They just made a couple of new acquisitions, Snapsell and Fixed Ops Digital. So a really exciting time to come into the company. Really enjoyed the conversation with the private equity team that's involved, and sort of what their vision was for where the company was going. And more importantly for me, I spent time with dealers who were using the solutions to sort of understand their perception, and got really, really good feedback on why the tools work for them, what they like about it, what they like about the company. All that sort of came together to say, hey, this is a great opportunity. So, it was an interesting space. And, sort of as I look across the automotive technology ecosystem, been in this space for a long time. There are a lot of companies out there that are what I would call lifestyle businesses for people. They have,
Hmm.
sort of small footprint. This is not that. These folks are pretty serious about what they're doing. They've been doing it for a long time, I think now 12 years. So, when I look at tools for dealers, like if it's not clear what the return on investment for the dealer is from the tool, I'm not really interested in sort of participating in that space. And these tools, again, long history, a really good dealer feedback. I think where they sit between the dealer and the customer, allowing the consumer to get really good information very quickly, and the dealer to sort of influence those outputs for the consumer, super important and makes for a great consumer experience and really helps the dealer drive consumers down funnel. So it's great.
In Tim, TradePending, it's seen significant growth and transformation in recent years. What do you think are some of the biggest milestones? You mentioned acquisitions, but just curious.
Yeah, I mean, obviously growth through acquisitions, but also organic growth. I mean, I think they've brought some products to market that have been really helpful. We have a product we call AutoBio, which is basically a, sort of digital brochure, but the amount of data that's in there, trackability, everything that we can do around that, really helps not only the consumer understand the vehicle they're looking at, but it actually helps the salesperson on the sales floor be more educated about the cars that they're selling. I mean, you come from the used car business.
Mhm.
If you go into a franchise store and you've got an off-brand car in your used car department, the likelihood that the salesperson that you're talking to knows everything about that car is fairly low. It's just really hard for anybody to have that kind of knowledge. So tools that help them do that, effectively, sort of be educated and educate the consumer at the same time, super impressive, super helpful, and really help the consumer experience and sell more cars, right? So.
So, TradePending's mission, from my understanding, is simple automotive, aiming to bridge the gap between dealer information and consumer needs. So, how does this philosophy influence the development of your platform's features?
Yeah, a good question. And I think where we think about it is how we think about that is two ways, right? So starting with the consumer, is it simple for the consumer to get to the information that they're looking for? And we've done the same survey now for 12 years. Top three reasons that a consumer comes to a dealer's website. Number one is, do they have the inventory I'm looking for? So our dealers are really good at getting their own inventory. Number two is, how much car can I afford? So, how do we make it really easy for them to understand the payment ranges that they're looking at, get to that information without having to fill out a massive form, and really understand what cars and inventory fit that payment. And the third one is, what's my car worth, right? If they've got a trade-in. And so how do we make it very simple for the consumer to get to that information, and therefore they feel more educated by the dealer. On the dealer side, we make it really simple for them to set up, get everything up and running, and get to the information they need about the consumer, and do that in a way that's, as we say, very simple. So that's in trade and payments. On the video side, our video solution, super simple. When we talk to consumer customers about why they like our video solution, it's because it is so simple. It's one click, very easy to make a video and send it. I talked about auto buy a little bit. The
Hmm.
same thing. So as we think about our development cycle, we try and keep that front of mind, which is, how are we going to make this easy for the dealer and for the consumer? Sort of just talk a little bit about third box thinking. I mean, who's my customer's customer? How do we make it easy for that consumer to sort of interact with the dealer, get the information they need? So, I say all that to say that's sort of a part of our driving principle, right? What do we do to make it so that it's not a process change at the dealership? It's not you've got to log in 27 places. It's not all of this stuff that happens at the
Hmm.
dealer level. How do we make it integrated into what they're doing every day and make it really easy to get to the data that they need? So.
So, with over 5,000 dealerships utilizing trade pending solutions, what feedback have you received from dealers regarding the impact on customer engagement and sales processes?
So on the consumer engagement side, we have great feedback on how well our tools help move customers from shoppers into, call them leads, but into active customers. And then, once they're in that cycle with us, we provide constant feedback on what the consumer is doing on the website. All of those features that dealers say, hey, I need to know, what did they look at my website? Which did they come back again, multiple times to look at things? So we can provide a salesperson who's getting ready to reach out to that customer a bunch of data about what the person is looking at. Are they specific types of cars, specific colors of cars, specific price of cars? All of that data we collect through our website tools. Once they're into the process, we want to make it easy for the dealer to have a personalized relationship with that consumer. So our belief is video, in a world of AI chatbots and everything else, is a much more personalized response to the consumer than whatever the automated responses that you're getting out of your CRM. And then if we can provide more information around the vehicle that they're looking at, again, a more educated consumer who's getting education from you as the dealer is more likely to continue the conversation and become a customer. And then once you are a customer, we want to make sure that, that we have retention tools that help. So our service offers product that basically sits on the website, is much more robust than what you see on a typical service page of a website. It's a lot more trackability. We can understand what's working for the dealer, which specials are working, how do we sort of reorganize that. But more importantly, we have a product called Value Watch, which allows the consumer to track their vehicle's value. And as
Hmm.
they're getting those monthly updates, they can come back into it, sort of reminds them of the service department. And we want to bring that consumer back to service. So, those things that the dealers, if you think about the environment today, where service is always important, it becomes more important in times when car sales may be under stress. Anything we can do to help keep that consumer engaged with the dealer through the life cycle of their, car ownership is super important. So.
As CEO, you're responsible for overseeing the entire customer life cycle. What strategies have you implemented to ensure a seamless experience from onboarding the dealership to ongoing support?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, as the company has grown from, single product to now, multiple products, especially through acquisition, the deployment and onboarding becomes more complex. And some of our tools now are more complex to deploy than others. I mean, video takes in-store, store training, getting salespeople engaged, and some other things. So what we focus on is that first 90 days. So if we have a dealer who says, yes, we'd love to partner with you, then, what do we do in that first 90-day period with that dealer to make sure that that onboarding experience is seamless? I look at it as time to first value. So how do we show the dealer the first value out of our products in the first 90 days? So that becomes a process, and I'm lucky to have really good partners on the team who run our deployment teams and great CS folks who really, sort of focus on, okay, what's our process? How do we make sure the dealers informed, they understand what's happening? And then as we move them down through deployment and into their sort of life cycle with us in our customer success team, how are we sort of making sure that they see value and immediately, and then how are we reinforcing that value and helping them strategize around how to optimize our tools over time as we see results come in. So, we really have focused on that over the last 6 to 8 months and continue to focus on it so we can get better. It's always an evolving thing, but we want to make sure that our dealer customers feel really good about that first initial impression and that they're seeing the values of the tools they purchase from us very quickly. And we're continuing to work with them to optimize those tools over time. So.
So, kind of shifting gears here, wanted to talk about current industry trends. So, with the current tariff-driven challenges in the auto marketplace, how is trade pending helping these dealers navigate these changes? And what impact do you anticipate these tariffs will have on the industry moving forward?
Yeah, it's interesting. We were just on a call with our whole company, and that question came up from one of our teammates, sort of around tariffs and our tools and some other stuff. So it's sort of top of mind for me. I think what's interesting for me about the trade pending tools, and let's talk about trade specifically here, is because we're collecting data daily, we can help dealers make updates to their values very, very quickly. We're not waiting on latent data from other sources to make those changes. And because we have, sort of configurability and customization within the tools, as used car prices have spiked here in the last 30 days, we've been able to go to dealers very quickly and say, hey, do you want to make some adjustments here to try and sort of reflect what's happening in the market to give yourself more opportunities to buy from consumers? How do we sort of help you with that? And because our data, as I said, we get data daily, so we can update that. We can sort of see what that price change looks like and help dealers make good decisions. So we're working with all of our dealers daily to sort of think about that. The other thing we've seen
Mhm.
is a real spike in payments engagement, right? And so as prices go up and we see stress on the consumer, affordability, we've been talking about it for a while now, but now it's even more critical. How can we help the dealer sort of on, what's being presented on their payments platform to make sure that they're putting their best foot forward and providing affordability options for the consumer? So there's a lot of stuff that we do daily there. On the broader macro side, I mean, I think we're talking to dealers every day. What I love about the car business and I love about dealers is they are super resilient. Most of them that we talk to, while they understand that there's risk out there, are heads down selling cars right now.
Mhm.
And they, control the controllables. I think the interesting thing for me, and I've been in the industry through multiple cycles, as I say, we are in a cycle now. There's no question about it. This cycle will go one way or another, and it will end at some point. But for folks who have been in the business, through the financial crisis, which was pretty long and pretty brutal, or what we saw in COVID, which was actually really short and really, and the bounce back was sort of really incredible. Each cycle has its own flavor. I'm not gonna, predict what's gonna happen with tariffs, but my sense is they won't be as draconian as what we're hearing today. The automotive ecosystem in this country is so important to our economy. The movement of parts and cars between the North American continent is super important. So, I think dealers are doing what they've learned how to do through COVID and through the financial crisis, which is they're making plans for if something happens. And they know how to do that much better because I just went through it in 2021. So, where they may have gotten a little loose, they've started to get their arms back
Mhm.
around things, but they know how to handle this, right? And we're going to be there to support them. But I have no doubt that whatever happens, they're going to be successful because they've weathered these storms before and they're going to weather them again. So.
Very well said, Tim. And the auto industry, it's rapidly evolving with advancements in technology and changing consumer expectations. What trends do you see shaping the future of dealership operations as well as customer interactions?
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to point at AI right now. I was talking to somebody this morning actually who I really respect in the industry, and they sort of said AI right now reminds me of the dot-coms in the 2000s, right?
Mhm.
Everybody sort of got AI in their name. At some point, it becomes really, and what they said is the companies that we see doing really well with AI are actually not talking about their AI. What they're talking about is outcomes and how they're actually making a difference in the business. And so, I think that customer contact and using, automated responses, whatever that looks like, I think in sort of trying to make sure that you are handling all of the inbound traffic, it has a place, right? So that's pretty important, but it also becomes very generic over time. I do think, I, I'm not a young person, but if I look at what young people, how they consume media today,
Mhm.
90% of it's video, right?
Huh.
So I'm not responding to text, but I'll spend 3 hours on Reels or something, or whatever that looks like. So I think video becomes more and more important and sort of that in real-time interaction. If you can actually contact somebody with a video, they respond to that, you can actually get on the phone with them in a video chat immediately and sort of put them sort of in the dealership with you. I think that's really cool. And I think there's, continued refinement in the tools around inventory management, service operations. There's a lot of interesting stuff happening out there right now. Again, why I love the industry, why I've been in it so long, it's ever evolving. The technology in the cars is evolving, the technology in the dealerships evolving, and the consumer expectations are evolving. But they're always going to be, you need a consumer, a car, in order to make a car deal. So that never changes. And I do think, as much as we went through this, everybody's going to buy everything online phase, and then that sort of tapered off. What we realized is this is a major purchase. The dealership experience matters. That dealership experience now very much extends to the digital experience. And so how do you really sort of meld those things together and make sure that from first touch on the digital side to the person walking through the front door and buying a car from you, that you have a really seamless, good consumer interaction. And those folks that really figure that out consistently are going to win. So,
And looking ahead, what initiatives or innovations is TradePending focusing on to continue supporting dealerships in adapting to these changes?
yeah, so I think we, as I said, if you look about what we're focused on, right? I mean, I think we would continue to refine and update, our trade tools to make those more effective in our payments tools. I think where we see a lot of opportunity is really on the retention side. And how do we sort of continue to keep that consumer engaged with the dealership over time? Um, how do we provide more data to the dealer? The other thing I didn't mention earlier is sort of the rise of the CDP now.
Mhm.
That has now come down market where, previously something that we would call not a CDP, but a big data warehouse was sort of the domain of the big companies that had huge IT departments. The commercialization of that and the ability to bring it down market for folks to really get a good understanding of what's happening with their tools. I think that and our ability as a provider in the space to provide all of the necessary triggers to sort of feed the CDP with first-party data so they know exactly where the consumer is in the workflow, where they are in the life cycle, they can act on that, is super important. So we spend a lot of time working on, do we have the right triggers? Are we able to feed data effectively into a CDP? We spend a lot of time on making sure that all of our tagging is ASC certified so that, as dealers get more sophisticated around their data management and these data management platforms, our tools will provide them the necessary inputs they need in order to make informed decisions. So we're spending a lot of time on making sure that we're helping them in that space.
And my last question for dealerships listening and looking to enhance their digital retailing, their trade capabilities, what advice would you offer to ensure they select the right tools and strategies?
Besides that, they should select trade pending. Yeah, that's I think it's really looking at what are you trying to achieve, and does this tool efficiently and effectively give me the outcomes that I'm looking for? Am I able to get the reporting that I need? Am I able to get the data that I need? Am I able to sort of get insights that I can't glean somewhere else from these tools? And I think it's really, what I encourage people to do is talk to other customers of the products. Like, how's it working for you? How is it, is this sort of getting there for you? So I think I would look for tools that are easy to use, go back to the simple thing that don't require a whole lot of in-store disruption, and that are going to provide you the data and metrics that you need to run your business very effectively. So,
Awesome. Well, Tim, really enjoyed having you on the podcast. I've learned so much. I'm sure our listeners have as well. So thanks for joining us.
Zach, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity and enjoy talking to you. So.